everybody. It's nice to be here. I like seeing all of these new names. There's quite a few people I have not had the privilege of teaching before. I'm going to quick share my screen, and then I will introduce myself in just a moment and ask you to maybe tell me just a little bit about yourself. There we go. So hi, everybody. My name is Amity. I teach with Ivy. Most of you have classes with another teacher. I teach a whole bunch of students like you. Before I get too far and to get you practicing using the chat box, could you all tell me what grade you're in, if you know? Are you in, maybe even just if I'm in elementary, or I'm in primary school, or I'm in middle, or I'm in 7th grade, or I'm in 5th. If you could all just take, I see a whole bunch of names. Thanks, guys. Mark and William and Larry. Oh my goodness, thank you. I have a whole bunch. It looks like basically from about 4th through 7th grade. That's what I'm seeing. Thank you, Ty, Charles, Joyce, Jade. Yep, it looks like we're about 4th through 7th grade. Thank you guys so much. That really helps me when I am teaching in each one of these sessions. I like to kind of know, it looks like Max says he's in 3rd. That's great, Max. I like to kind of know who I'm talking to. At the end, I will ask for some questions, and maybe I'll get to talk to a few of you. But even throughout today, it helps me as we stop on vocabulary, and maybe even as I'm telling you our bit of story today. So I am from Florida. I currently live in this great state of Florida in the southern part of the United States. Check our chat box again. Can you tell me where you are? Where do you live right now? Are you in China? Do you live somewhere else? Maybe in Canada or in the US, or I have some students in Australia. Lovely. Most of my students are here in Canada. Fantastic. Oh my goodness, we have a great assortment. We have a lot of people from Canada tonight. Great, guys. It's nice I have some even from London. I have a couple from Shanghai. Fantastic. Well, for those of you who are in China tonight, this morning in China, I have actually never, ever had the privilege. I hope someday, I really hope after this virus to get to go to China and Hong Kong. I have not been yet. Soon. I hope someday soon. I have been pretty all over Canada. It's a fantastic country. If you're getting to live there now, I'm so I think it's a wonderful place. I think you can even see right down here in the corner. That was the last time my family and I were in Victoria on the far western part. Let me ask you all. Most of you said you're from Canada, Shanghai, London. Have you ever been to the United States? And if so, what state, if you know, have you been to California? Have you been to Florida? Have you been to New York? Can you write in the chat box? Tell me if you've been to the United States. I see someone, Linya, saying she's been to Florida. Fantastic. My state. Looks like quite a few people have been to California. Some have been to New York. Jade's saying they've been to half of the United States. Fantastic. New York, Florida. Oh, Alina said she's been to Houston. Well, if you have ever, I'm looking at the names, and I don't think a lot of you have attended one of my lessons before. But if you have, you're going to know, 1, I like to ask questions. And 2, I love to tell stories from history, weird stories, strange stories from history. And today's strange story from history actually comes from the United States. Most of my stories actually don't, but this one does. This one comes from the far northwest corner of the United States. You can see the star here. If you're familiar with the state of Washington or the state of Oregon, that is where this story takes place. All right, guys, let's go on and introduce you to D.B. Cooper. You may have seen this picture in the ad for this class tonight. Today, we are going to tell the story of the mysterious and D.B. Cooper. Who was he? What happened? Let's see if actually, before I even get started, has anyone ever heard this story before? And if so, don't tell. Don't talk about it. I just want to know, has anyone ever heard of D.B. Cooper? Looks like Alina's saying yes. Well, Alina, it's one of my favorites. So I hope you don't mind hearing it again. It's a really strange story. A really strange story. Okay. Well, let's go and look. And you're going to see, we'll do a bit of reading. I try to kind of pull the, if I go back, you'll see, I will put the words on the screen. Do your best. Again, a whole bunch of different grades. We have 3rd grade all the way through like 7th grade tonight. So if you can read along on the screen, it will help those of you that maybe aren't understanding as I speak out loud. So what happened? Well, first, I'm going to start right here at this very first bullet point. D.B. Cooper is the name given to an unknown man who hijacked a Boeing 727 airplane in the Northwest United States on the afternoon of Wednesday, November 24th, 1971. I love vocabulary, so let's see. We're going to go over this in a minute, but does anyone know what hijacked means? If you know what hijacked means, write it in the chat box before I could even say it. I think that was, someone said hello. It means to steal. Hijack means to take something that is not yours to try to get somebody to do something else. In this case, a plane, a big airplane, was stolen on a Wednesday in November 1971. This man by the name of D.B. Cooper handed a note to the flight attendant that was seated near him. If you've ever been on a plane, you know that when a plane takes off, the flight attendants that kind of hand out drinks and bring you things that you need, they have to sit down too. Well, one was seated real close to him. And so he handed her a note, a piece of paper. This flight attendant kind of ignored it and dropped it into her purse. She just assumed he was trying to write her maybe a personal note, okay? Like, you're pretty. But that's not what the note was. So when he saw her put the note in her bag and ignore it, he leaned over and kind of told her, come here, so he could talk to her. And he says, Miss, you better look at that note. I have a bomb. So his note said that, but she never read it. Next, he then tells her that he wants, at the time, again, 1971, he tells her he wants $200,000 US when the plane lands, or he's not going to let the passengers go. I think if you do, I know you're all in Canada and different places around the world, but today in US dollars, this is about, it's over like $1 million, $1.5 million. It's a lot more money than you think, okay? It's a lot of money. So he basically says, land the plane, give me the money, and then I'll let the people go. Okay. The flight attendant then tells the captain of the plane, of course she has to, she can't land the plane. She goes and tells the captain, and of course he calls the ground, and they tell the police. Right here you can see, I'll keep reading. Cooper also asked for other items, some strange items, including he wanted more than one. He actually asked for 4 parachutes. He wanted 4 parachutes, and he wanted the plane to be refilled with gasoline. He obviously was preparing for the plane to take off again. Who knows what parachute means? Parachute. You may see this kind of bold word right here, parachute. Can you try to see? I see Ty. You're going to find out. I'm going to answer your question that you're asking in their chat box, Ty, later. There we go. The thing you use to jump. The thing that allows you to jump from a plane. It saves your life when you jump out of a plane. Fantastic. Jingsu, let's see, Ivy, Linya, all kinds of people. Parachutes. It's the thing that you kind of put on your back, and once you jump out of a plane, it opens up and it allows you to safely jump out of a plane. Kind of a strange thing for someone to want unless they're going to jump out of a plane. Okay, so DB Cooper, and I don't actually have this written here. I'm going to go back. This name, DB, we don't know if this is his name. This is the name that he wrote on back in 1971. It wasn't like a plane ticket on your phone or in your email. It was an actual piece of paper that you bought, and then you had to sign your name on. And so there was a plane ticket bought by this person, and he wrote something that most people believe is D.B. Cooper. Now, there's never been anyone found to be by that name, and it would be kind of foolish for him to write his real name on the ticket. So this is what we call him, but we don't really know what his name was. It was just the man that happened to do this. Okay. Let's get on to our next screen. Let's just review some vocabulary. I know I asked you all, but I want to show you them, especially for those that may not have known the words. So the first word I used on that page was hijacked. Hijacked. And this is simply to steal a plane or a train or a bus or a car, really any sort of transportation, and force it to go where you want it to go. So in this case, it was a plane, but you could steal a train and do the same thing. Next, flight attendant. It depends. I don't know what word you may have learned in English. You may have learned this word. You may have learned steward or stewardess in your English classes. More commonly in the US, at least today, we call them flight attendants. They are people who help you on a plane. They sometimes bring meals, they bring drinks, they help you if you're sick, they help you if you're in the wrong seat. They're a steward or a stewardess. And the last, I'm going to clear that off real quick. The last word I taught you guys on that page was parachute. Parachute. It's just a cloth canopy that opens when you want to jump out of a plane. Actually, let me ask you all this. Is anyone here, would anyone want to jump out of a plane? Has anyone ever wanted to go skydiving, to jump out of a plane? I know you're all pretty young, but maybe when you're grown up? Does anyone want to? I hear, I'm afraid of heights. No. Let's see if I get any. Oh, Ivy said yes. My mom does. Love it, Linya. So Brandon, I have kind of a mix. A lot of people saying yes, and quite a few people saying no. To be honest with you all, I don't think I would either. I don't really want to do it, but I have 4 kids, and my husband wants to, and my son. I have 2 boys and 2 girls, and my 2 boys, I think, would both love to go skydiving. In fact, my one son is in the Marines, the U.S. Marines. And so he flies a lot already. So he has jumped in. But yes, I personally, no desire to do this. Okay. Interesting. Good mix here today. A very good mix. Well, this is kind of just a couple pictures. You'll see I have a lot of different pictures and videos always to help my stories. Yes, Jinxie, my son is a Marine. Okay. These are actually the pilots you're seeing in the bottom left. And this is the flight attendant or the stewardess that I used, that the note was given to. Everybody else was also on this plane, at least for part of this. But this is the blonde lady, the lady right here with the longer hair, is the woman that that the note was passed to, and that D.B. Cooper spent most of his time speaking with. Let's keep going. So again, the plane takes off. D.B. Cooper tells the stewardess, I want money, I want parachutes, and I want you to land. They wanted the plane to land. So at 5:24, I'm going to read right here at the top of the page. At 5:24 p.m., Cooper was told that his demands had been met. And at 5:39, then the plane landed. So he wouldn't let the plane land until he knew that that the police and that the money was there, the parachutes were there. He did not let the plane land until he knew he was getting what he wanted. I think Linya says, did this guy actually have a bomb? Actually, no. He had what looked like a bomb, though. He had a suitcase, maybe a small briefcase is what we would call it, like a bag for a computer. And it had dynamite in it. And it looked like it was a bomb. This was 1970, so it looked like a bomb. But later, when they looked at all the stuff, it wouldn't have worked. It was not a bomb. It would not have worked. Why did he do that? Because he wanted them to think he did. When he told the woman I had a bomb and she didn't believe him, he opened the suitcase and showed her. And so she had every reason to think that he really did have a bomb. Okay, so the plane lands. And once he received everything, parachutes, money, and a couple other small things he asked for, Cooper lets the passengers go. There was like, I think 36 passengers. It wasn't 100 or 200 people. It was like 30 something. And he lets two of those flight attendants that I showed you. I'm gonna go back here real quick. He lets two of them go, the ladies with the dark hair. He let them get off the plane with the passengers. And the pilot and the lady with the blonde hair and one other, the co-pilot, stayed on. Okay, so most of the people are off, but there's about 5 people still left on the plane. And I think someone's asking, does the 727 is much smaller. I'm going to show you the plane in just a few minutes, but it was not full. You're going to hear that it was also not full for the time. I want to say it holds like 50 or 60 people, and like 36 or 40 were on the plane. So once everybody gets off, Cooper then tells the pilot, I'm going to read right here at bullet number 3. Cooper told the pilot his flight plan. The plan was for him to take off again. He wanted the pilot to take off. He got the stuff, and now he wants him to leave again. And he wants him to fly toward Mexico. He wants them to go toward Mexico. So I'm going to show you in the next page or so a map so you can kind of see all this, and I'll explain it again on that map. But he wants him to take off and start flying toward Mexico. But I'm assuming, because you're all living in Canada and different places, how many of you have been on a plane? Tell me if you've been on a plane before, a big plane. Looks like, I'm guessing most everyone. Perfect. Looks like, yes, most everyone. And some of you are saying even really big planes. Yes. If you're flying internationally, the planes now are pretty big. This was not an international plane. And again, in 1970, the planes weren't as big as they are now. The reason I ask you is because then when a plane takes off, it goes really, really, really high normally. We don't stay, like a plane doesn't take off and fly close to the ground. Big passenger planes need to get up way up high, about 30,000 feet usually. 30,000 feet. That's a couple of miles. That's actually about 5-6 miles up in the air. Okay. It's pretty high. Well, this pilot, the Cooper told the pilot, he did not want him to do that. He did not want him to go up as high as they normally would. Cooper said he wanted the pilot to take off, but only go, in fact, read right here. The plane was to take off and head toward Mexico at the minimum airspeed and height possible without stalling the aircraft. Stalling. The word stalling, let me just show you on this next page here. Stalling. It means to stop working. So there's a height where the plane, like if the plane didn't get up high enough that it would be too heavy to stay up in the air. So he told the plane pilot, get up as high as you have to go to keep the plane working, but don't go to the normal height. Okay. Stalling means to stop working, and lots of things can stall. Okay. You can be using a car and we can say, oh, my car stalled. You could be on a plane and the engine can stall. It just means to stop working. So the plane now takes back off at 7:40 p.m. You can kind of see, here we go, 5:39 is when they first land, and he lets all those people get off. Within just barely 2 hours later, he's taking off again. Okay. He's only on the ground at the airport for 2 hours. He takes off. He has the pilot take off. And this time the plane only has 5 people on board, including DB Cooper. Someone, I'm not sure, a couple of people have asked, so did all of those people die? No, when they landed at 5:39, This right here, I said to you, he ordered all of the passengers. That means he told them to get off. The people were allowed to go and they were not hurt. They were probably very scared, but they were not hurt. He let them go. So now when the plane takes off again, there's only 5 people, really, DB Cooper and 4 other people, okay? That's it. This big old plane, this big plane only has 5 people on it. Now, the US government ordered military planes to follow the plane at a distance where Cooper could not see them. Now, notice the time. It's night, and you're going to see some pictures in a moment. It was dark. It was getting dark, and it was rainy this day. So what the military said is, okay, when this plane takes off and starts flying low, they wanted military planes, military jets to stay back here and follow. Okay, so they were going to follow this plane. I don't know what they were going to do. Probably, I don't know. I don't know why they would have had them do that, because there's not much you can do from another plane. But the military orders jets to fly behind the 727. Okay, but DB Cooper doesn't know this, of course. They don't tell him that. So the plane takes off, and Cooper tells everybody to go to the cockpit and stay there until the plane lands. Stay there until the plane lands. So yeah, there's 4 people beside him. Now the pilot is already up there. He's flying. Okay, so he tells the other 3 people to go in. If you've been on an airplane, you know that where the pilot sits is behind a door. Like, you can't see him. So he tells everybody else, those other 3 people, to go up there and stay behind the door. Okay. I'm going to show you here real quick. We'll come back to this next one. So cockpit, that's just the word we use for the place in an airplane where a pilot sits. Doesn't matter what kind of airplane, whether it's just a seat or if it's a little room, the place in the airplane where a pilot sits is called the cockpit. Okay, this is called the cockpit. Last little bullet point right here at the very bottom. So 7:40, he takes off. 8 p.m. This is 20 minutes, not even 20 minutes after the plane has taken off. All 4 of the other 4 people are up in the cockpit, and suddenly a light starts flashing in the cockpit. A little light on the panel that the pilot's looking at flashes, saying that the rear of the aircraft had been opened. Okay, that there's a light and it goes off and it tells the pilot, warning, warning, the back of the airplane is open. And suddenly, that was at 8, 13 minutes later, at approximately 8:13, if you can imagine, I don't even know how to this was not an airplane, but if you can imagine, the plane is flying along smoothly. And at 8:13, the back end of the plane kind of jumps. And that's not supposed to happen. There was not turbulence or bumps in the air. It's flying smoothly, and all of a sudden, the plane jumps at the back of it. Okay, the light goes off, and then 13 minutes later, the plane jumps. We're going to talk about it in just a minute. Let's look at that map like I promised you. Okay. So if you all, I'm going to get my drawing tool back. Many of you tonight are up here in Canada somewhere. And I know Canada is a huge country, but you guys are all somewhere up here. Okay. I currently live right down here. The United States, just like your home country of China, is very big and wide. So we have to kind of specify. We have to be specific where we're talking about. Okay, where are we talking about? And this plane, when he takes off, we're talking about this little part of the United States right here, the far northwest corner. The plane takes off right here. In fact, many of you may even, if you're from Canada, you may have been to Vancouver. You may have been to Seattle, Washington. That's the part of the plane, the part of this country we're talking about. Well, let me erase this real quick. Forgive me, I don't want to erase everything, just this. So if you can imagine, what's happened is the plane was supposed to take off and travel to a totally different area, okay? DB Cooper made the plane go back and land, and that's where he got the money and the parachutes, okay? And once he gets the money and the parachutes, they take off from here again, and now he tells them again to fly toward Mexico. He tells the pilot, fly this way. He wants them to fly toward Mexico. They have no idea why, but that's what he tells them to do, and the pilot starts to do it so that they are safe. What happens again, 20 minutes after takeoff, they don't get very far. They move from about, if you can see, it's a very small area. In fact, I'm going to point out this little area on the bottom. They basically only move, they don't get very far. They barely even get out of Washington state. The plane takes off and they're going toward Mexico, but this is the area right here. I'm going to try to make it a big red triangle or dot. This is the area we're talking about. They don't make it very far. Okay. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys have any questions, you can absolutely, if you want to, actually it's probably best if you save them till the end. All I ask though is if you're in the chat box, try to make it about what we're talking about tonight, okay? You guys can have personal conversations with each other later, and it kind of makes it hard for everyone else to pay attention in the chat box. All right, that's what we're talking about. We've already gone over the word stall and stalling. I point these out because, again, I ask questions. Coming up next, we did cockpit. Cockpit is the place in the airplane where a pilot sits. And the last one here is rear. It simply means back. In this case, we said the rear of the airplane, but you can have the rear of a stadium. You can have the rear of a car. Okay, it just means the back. So let's take a minute. Let's see how many of you remember. What does the word hijacked mean? What does the word hijacked mean? Do your best to try to type out, again, maybe one word if you're not really good with the keyboard, or you can write the whole definition. I'd love to see it. I'm going to give you all a few minutes to write in the chat box. I see, thank you, Linya, Yolanda, and Selena, and Jade. Thank you all, Michael, everybody. I see lots of great answers. Basically, everyone is saying it means to steal, to take something, to take control of something. Very, very good. I think that was Ivy. In this case, they took control of a plane, to steal an airplane. Let's see. Very good, guys. Thank you all for participating. I really appreciate it. It makes these classes a lot more fun. If Austin said take over, but it makes sense. Absolutely, it does. Hijack simply means to take something like that is not yours, okay? To force it to do something that it doesn't want to do. So for example, in this case, it was a plane, but you could hijack a train and make a train, instead of letting a train go where it's supposed to, you could say, no, we're not going anywhere, and I'm going to blow up this plane or this train. Hijack means taking control when it's not yours and making it do something it's not supposed to. Another review question. Try to describe to me where we said that DB Cooper hijacked this plane. Where? I see perfect. In the US, if you can get more specific, great. Maybe you know the direction words, or maybe you saw and heard me say the name of the states that he was in. Perfect. Alina, Jason, Mark, lots of people are seeing it. Washington State. In the US, we have Washington, D.C., which is our capital city. And we have Washington, the state of Washington. They are on exact, in fact, if I go back over here real quick, they are on exact opposite sides of our country. Many of you have heard of Washington, D.C., but that's right here on this side. And our story takes place right over here in the northwest corner. I'm using directions. I don't know, maybe some of you have learned them. If you're one of my history students, you would have learned these. We use these kinds. This is north, this is south, this would be west, and this would be east. So when I say northwest, I mean both north and toward the direction of west, both northwest corner of the United States. Very good, y'all. I saw lots of great answers. Thank you very much. Let's think. I think I have one or two more review. One more, I think. So I picked one. I actually have two. What is cockpit? What does cockpit mean? Learning lots of vocabulary tonight. What does the word cockpit mean? Place where the pilot. Austin, fantastic. Linya, Alina. Very good, Yolanda. Great job. Cockpit means it's this place where the pilot sits. If it's a small plane, that's just a seat. It's just one little chair. But if it's a big plane, like many of you have flown on, this is like a room. It has a door and it has lots of information, panels and buttons and windows. It's a whole room. In this case, in the 727, it was a small space, but it's kind of a space like I have around here. Someone could stand behind me. There could be more than one person in this room behind me. Okay, last one. Stall. Stall. For those of you, this is E2 easy. You could try to use this word in a sentence. So don't just, if you're able, you could even say, tell me what stall means, but you could write a whole sentence if it's too easy. Stall means doesn't work. No, stop working. Very good. Stall means to stop working. So I could say, my car stalled. And that's a complete sentence. Linya, Linya, I actually think that was a great sentence. The plane stalled right before landing, Jingsu. The plane stalled. If you didn't see it, Linya said, thank you. I appreciate it. It was good. It made me laugh. Linya said, my brain has stalled. I think something like that, which sometimes our brain just stops working. All right, let's keep going and get you guys some pictures of this plane. So this is the 727 that we have been talking about. This is the actual plane. This is the picture from that night. You can kind of see this is once the plane lands a little bit later, we're going to talk about that, but this is the actual plane. So you can see it's not tiny, but it's certainly not big like maybe some of those planes you have flown on like internationally from China to Canada or anywhere else. So follow me along. I'm going to read on this very bottom. Okay. Remember, we just left off with 8:13 p.m. A warning light has gone off and the plane kind of jumps. Okay. I will read. Please follow along. It is believed that D.B. Cooper jumped from the rear staircase into the sky around 8:13 p.m. when the crew felt that sudden jump of the plane. No one saw him jump from inside the plane because, remember, where was everyone? There's no one in where the passengers sit. Where did everybody go? Jingsu, thank you. They were all in the cockpit. They were all in the cockpit. They couldn't see him. Okay, so they're all up here. We'll draw some little drawings. So everybody, all the people are up here. Okay. When the plane is in the air. And you're going to see in a moment, I'm going to show you, there's actually a stairway that kind of opens up here. And this is where they believe D.B. Cooper jumped from. It is believed that he jumped from the plane. No one saw him. None of the planes that were flying behind them saw him either. It was very late at night, very dark. It was rainy. And there were clouds blocking light from the ground. So even the planes that were higher, they couldn't see him because they were up high and there was no light coming from the ground because of the clouds. Okay, so it's our best guess at this point, especially remember, these people are on this plane. It's still flying at 8:13 and they have to figure that, did he just jump? I think he just jumped. They don't know what happened for sure, though. Okay. So next. Come on. That was like, what do we say what time it was when 8:13? Well, for a long time, the pilot, the stewardess, they didn't really know what to do. So they were talking with people on the ground. And finally, they get permission from the police and from the government to land. They say, you know what, maybe you should just land. Let's land. I don't think he's on that plane anymore. As crazy as it sounds like he actually jumped out from right in here, this staircase, which you're going to see in a minute. So right here is where I'm going to start reading again. At 10:15 p.m., the plane landed in Reno, Nevada, not far from where they started. The staircase was still open. The plane landed with this staircase out. You'll see in a moment. Government officials and police surrounded the jet, but an armed search quickly confirmed that he was missing. So the plane lands. The police surround the plane. If you can go back and look at that drawing we just looked at a minute ago, they land. Police come and they surround everywhere on the ground. They're all over out here. And eventually they get on board and they start searching everywhere, and he is not there. He is not on the plane. So they have to accept he must have jumped. That doesn't seem to make any sense, but he must have jumped. Next bullet point right here where it says Cooper. Cooper extorted. We'll come back to that word in a minute. Cooper extorted $200,000, or like I said, about $1.3 million today in ransom. He got ransom, and we're going to go over that word in a minute. Despite an enormous effort, though, DB Cooper, even just his body, most people thought that he would have died doing this because he was jumping in very dangerous conditions, okay? They should have at least found the parachute or his body or the money, the big bag of money. But most of it has never been located, not till this day. So we're 50 years later and it has not been located. Some things have. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But this case remains the only unsolved case of air piracy in aviation history. This kind of thing has happened since then, but they always find the person. The person either is found or kills himself or dies. This is the only time they have not been able to figure out who did this and what happened to them. Let's go over a couple of those words. Ransom. Ransom. If you like movies, this happens all the time in these adventure movies, okay? People demand ransom. Ransom means money demanded for the release of prisoners. So in this case, the passengers, he got the $200,000 because there was like 40 people on the plane that the government wanted to protect. The government didn't want them to die. So they paid it, thinking that there's no way that they never had any clue that this guy would jump from a plane. Even though I saw somebody earlier say, well, that's why he looked or asked for a parachute. You're right. It makes sense that he was going to jump from the plane because he was asking for parachutes, and he asked for multiple parachutes, which means he must have known something about how to use them. And he wanted to make sure he got the right kind because he asked for 4 different kinds of parachutes, very specific. All right. That's ransom. Again, pay attention. If you're watching movies, some of these words will come up. A lot of you, I've been seeing your vocabulary today, and I bet you watch movies where this comes up. Ransom. It's money demanded for the release of prisoners. Next word would be piracy, but I'm going to unclick it. The word is piracy. Since y'all were pretty smart tonight, I want to know if anyone hears another word. What word does piracy sound like? What word does piracy sound like? I'm going to give it a minute. I see. Thank you, Ivy. Jason, Alina. Piracy. Very good, Michael. You guys, exactly. Piracy sounds like the word pirate. Okay. All we've done is kind of change the ending from the TE to the Y. And if you know that it sounds like pirate, I'm going to go back here. What do you think piracy means? If you know what, I'm guessing most of you know what pirate means, what might the word piracy? Oh, I got some great guesses. We have got to steal gold, to rob, to kill. Yes, because that is absolutely what pirates do. Pirates take and steal gold. They steal money, things of value, and they don't do it nicely. They didn't, right? If you know anything, you've ever read a pirate story, any about pirates from, they're not as common today. They're still out there, but a pirate steals, robs people. They attack people and do things by force, usually very violently. Okay, very violently. So that is what D.B. Cooper did. He threatened them with a bomb. If you don't do what I want you to do, I am going to blow you up. I'm going to blow up this plane. That was a threat. And by doing that, he got money. He's just like a pirate. So in this case, we call it air piracy. You see how the U.S., in English in general, we have a lot of words that we kind of use in different ways. So you could often look at a new word and say, I don't know what that means, but I do know what piracy, and I do know what pirate means. I'm going to show you guys, it's a very brief animation, but I think what I want to do is come here, and if you guys watch a little bit, I'll click it, there we go. You can see basically what happened is back here in this end, and it'll keep playing over and over and over. It'll loop, and yay, my D.B. Cooper. And just watching the back end of this plane that I'm showing you all right now, you're going to see that the plane doors will open. This hatch, that's a stairway that you're seeing. And someone's going to walk down it and then jump out. This is all they think he did. This is what they think he did. That warning light that they saw was the pilot being told that this door was open. This door is also the door that was open when they landed. Okay, that didn't, in the video, it keeps closing, but when they landed, that door was still open. So yes, it dragged on the ground when the plane landed. But this is very simply and kind of strangely, if you think about it, this is what they think D.B. Cooper did. Go back to just gonna check our time. Make sure I always like to leave a little time for questions at the end. We are almost done, so we will have plenty of time. Good. So this is kind of I don't want to say a cartoon, but it is a drawing. It's kind of like a cartoon that kind of just walks you through everything, maybe a little bit of a review. So in this first, if you can imagine this being like 1, 2, this would be 3, 4, and 5. This is kind of the step-by-step of what they think had happened. Okay, so basically he gets out of a plane like any other passenger and it takes off. Like you and I got on a plane any other day to go on a trip to Disney. I saw some of you have gone to New York. He gets on a plane. But in this case, within very shortly after the plane takes off, he threatens them with a bomb. Okay, and he makes the plane turn around and go back. And when they land, basically you can I don't know if you can see it, it's fairly small and dark, but he lands, money is brought to him, and all of the people are let off and they're let go. The plane then takes off again. And not long after it takes off, Cooper jumps from the plane with one of those parachutes that he was given. Next slide is some cool stuff. This is actual stories that were in the newspaper. This was a huge story in the United States and around the world, especially when they couldn't figure it out. The drawing that you saw at the beginning and maybe even on the little thing for the class today, this is the drawing. This is based on that flight attendant or the stewardess that I showed you. She was interviewed a lot by the government and by something called the FBI, if you've ever heard of, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. It's an agency we have here in the United States. And they were able to kind of put together this drawing from her descriptions. She was able to describe, the shape of his face and how much hair he had. Most of the time he was on the plane, he actually wore sunglasses. So that's why they have him with the sunglasses on. But right toward the end, when he got his money, he took off his sunglasses, obviously, maybe to jump. So there was a little bit of information, but they're not entirely sure if it's accurate. But this was the drawing that was sent all around the world with information. All this stuff down here is information, what they did know about him. Because again, this man has jumped out of a plane and is now out there somewhere. He's either dead or he's alive with $200,000 of the government's money. So they tried and tried and tried to find him, but were unable. So I'm going to start reading right here under the word unsolved. Evidence today and since then suggests that Cooper probably did not survive his jump, but his body has never been recovered. They've never found his body or the parachute that he was using. Remember, he left 3 parachutes and took 1. They know what parachute it was, and they've not found remnants of that parachute. Why didn't he survive? You have to, if you've ever read about skydiving, jumping from a plane, when people do that, it's very specific. Usually the plane must go to an exact height in the air, and it must travel at a very specific speed so that people are safe when they jump. Well, this plane was not doing that. This plane was at the wrong height and the wrong speed to jump from. And so most people assume that he was whipped around and probably could not get his parachute open. And if he couldn't get his parachute open, then he would have died. But again, we don't know. They were not able to find him. The FBI actually investigated. Let's see if anybody knows this one. What is investigate? I keep using that. Investigate. The FBI investigated. What does it mean? Let's see if anyone knows what the word investigation or investigate means. Thank you, Ty. Thank you, Ivy, Jason. It means to carefully, I love that word, Charles. It means to intentionally, carefully, and use evidence, which we're going to go over in a moment, to search for something. It doesn't just mean like, hey, keep a lookout. It means that that's their job. They are looking for evidence. They're looking for something to tell them what happened to this guy. 45 years, y'all. 45 years. They looked for him. They looked for evidence. They have looked for evidence. In fact, if you like this story, I can tell you there's a lot of information about this story out there, and some good movies about it. But to this day, really, no, there have been conclusions made, but none are 100% sure if they're right. So we just really don't know about Cooper's true identity or what happened to him. Because again, it's not likely D.B. Cooper is not his name. So we really have not been able to figure out who he was. So some guy got away with $200,000 and a very strange jump from a plane. Now, the only thing, there have been some things that have happened, and we'll talk about 2 right now, but in about 1980, so about 9 years after this happened, a young boy camping with his family discovered a small number of marked ransom bills. Ransom bills, remember, money demanded for payment. The money that was given to him, if you could even imagine, like if this was this was money, the money all has, if you know, even in China and in Canada, money has numbers on it. It has numbers so that each individual dollar bill or yuan or a Canadian dollar has a number. So when the government gave him this money, they knew exactly what numbers they gave him. So in 1980, this kid found some of these bills, some of this money, a small stack I'm about to show you, was found along a river near where Cooper jumped. The bills were buried under the ground. They were under the sand, and they were stacked in a little stack, not washed up as one would expect after he jumped from a plane. However, the great majority of the ransom money was never found. Let me click a couple and show you. This is what they found. If you look in the upper left corner, the money was falling apart. It was, like I said, in sand and in water along a river. And it was in, like, if you could take, I almost want to show you, like this is a stack, this is paper. But if you can imagine, like, the kid found a stack of paper like this, stack of money in the ground, almost like someone buried it. Okay. Like someone put it there. That's the only money that anyone has ever found, or none of it's ever been used or anything. Someone did say, by the way, it does look like some of this money is burned. It's not. It's like a mold. That's one thing that a lot of people think. It looks like someone tried to get rid of the money. But if in a better picture, and scientists have studied this money, it was not burned. It has like a mold growing on it because it was wet for 9-10 years. So that's the only money that was ever found. And his body was never found. So really, they started kind of looking around, asking people, do you know someone that maybe looks like this, that might have been able to do this? Linya says maybe he's still running around the USA with $200,000. In fact, a lot of people think that, Linya. A lot of people think this guy got away and he just went back into like a normal life and hid right in normal. Timing wise, he could still be alive because they thought that he was maybe 30 or 40. And again, this is 50 years later, so he could be 80 today, but he could still be alive. You're right, though. He's probably dead. He is probably dead. However, over the years, because they kept looking, the FBI kept looking and looking, many people came forward saying that they know who D.B. Cooper is. Lots of people came forward and said, I think it's my uncle, and I think it was this guy I saw back in this city. Lots of people thought they knew who he was. But again, today we have science and we have technology. They do have DNA from the person, because remember, he wrote her a note. D.B. Cooper gave the flight attendant a note. He left his tie on the plane, his glasses. So they have some DNA, but they've never been able to match it with a person. So all these people that came forward saying, I think it's him, or even some people who said it was me, they've never been proven true. So this is just some of those evidence, like I said, evidence, which we're going to go over in a moment. This was the money, the marked money. And this was one of the parachutes they gave him, but that he didn't use. Okay, this is one of the military parachutes that they gave him to use, but he did not use. So vocabulary. I can actually start there. I see quite a few of you asking about DNA or saying. DNA stands for, hold on, big long science word, deoxyribonucleic acid. Why most of us in English say DNA. It's a way of telling one person from another. Yes, it is in our blood, but it is what makes us us. It's what makes me look like this. It's what makes you look one way and maybe your brother or sister look like you, but slightly different. DNA is made up of something called chromosomes, but it's something very specific to an individual person. So they have this for the person that was called D.B. Cooper. But unless they find someone to match it to, that's all it is. Very good. Hello. That's exactly what it is. Deoxyribonucleic acid. Very good. Let's go with some words, though, that I know you'll use. Evidence. Again, movies, ransom, pirate, piracy, evidence. These are information that is found. Anything in a case, in a mystery, anything that is information found. The facts of a case. In this case, the money was evidence. The tie that he left on the plane was evidence. The note that he wrote, the stewardess, was evidence. That's evidence. We talked about investigate. Let's see if you can tell me. Oh, let's go back here real quick. Conclusion. Conclusion is the end of an event. So they kept trying to figure this out and have it come to conclusion, but it did not work. This should not be that way. All my slides are, so guess what we're going to do? I do this sometimes and I hide them. Ha. I know you can see them right now, but oh, darn it. I apologize. It should not be showing you these questions. So that's what we do. I can hide it. We've already done this word, so I'm looking at our time. I'm going to ask you, what does ransom mean? What does ransom mean? And if you're in the room today and you have a question, this would be a really good time to raise your hand about this story, or for me. I can't open your microphone, but Miss Annie can, and she will pick a couple of you to maybe ask a couple questions. While you're doing that, those of you that don't want to ask a question, just answer, what is ransom? Stolen money. Very good, Michael, Yolanda, fantastic. Love it. Stolen money. Oh, I hear Jade. Hey, Jade. Oh, no, your microphone got muted again.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Same old, same old.
Good. That's a good answer. What's your question?
My question is why he got 4 parachutes instead of 1?
That's a really good question, and I did not answer that so far, Jade. Fantastic. Most people believe that whoever D.B. Cooper was, he knew about parachutes. Maybe he was in the military himself. And so he asked very specifically for an Army parachute, for a skydiving parachute, for 4 different kinds. And we think that was to kind of confuse people. Because if he said, give me that Army parachute, it would kind of tell everyone, oh, he must know how to use an Army parachute. So he asked for 4 very different kinds, kind of trying to throw people off, and also probably wanting to make sure he knew how to use the parachute that he got. But very good question, Jade. We don't know for sure, but most people think that's why. Anybody else?
I have one more question.
Oh, good. Good, Jade. Go ahead.
Is D.B. Cooper one of does D.B. Cooper kill the D.B. Cooper want the money? Why? Why he want the money?
Since we don't know who he is, we have no idea, because none of the money was ever used. It has never been used. So, because again, we know the number on the money, but since the money was never used, we have no idea what he wanted it for. No idea, but very good question, Jade.
Okay.
Maybe, I appreciate it, y'all. I know the time is up, but maybe, I don't know, Annie, I think it's up to you if you want to allow another question. Otherwise, we can finish.
Many questions.
I'm fine. I can take a couple more. That's fine with me.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Brandon?
you.
You're welcome, Jade. It was nice meeting you.
Brandon?
Hi.
Hey,
Hi.
Brandon.
Oh, yeah. I have 2 questions probably that depends how you answer me. So
Okay.
The first question is, when the warning light is on, how did D.B. Cooper open the sled of the plane to jump out? It probably
Very good.
it should be controlling in the pilot room, but not controlling by him.
Absolutely. You would think that it should only be opened by the pilot. However, this type of plane, and many at the time, have an emergency release that obviously D.B. Cooper knew about when he got on this plane. That's one of the other things we know about him. Not only did he know how to use a parachute, but clearly he knew how to open the hatch, and that there was this emergency lever that most people would not. I don't know about that. But he knew that there was a button. There was an emergency button in the rear of the plane.
Oh, okay. So do you think he's gonna survive, or he's gonna dead after he jump out of the plane? And what do you think he's gonna do when he jumped out of the plane to that little river?
I think DB Cooper probably thought he would survive. I have watched and read a lot about this case. Again, if you heard me at the beginning, I like strange history stories. It's interesting to me. Most people, myself included, believe because of the conditions of that night. It was cold, it was rainy, they were going really fast. Most people believe he died. He probably thought he could survive, but he did not. But we don't know where he went.
So is there any clue that seems that he died?
Yes. No, we have no body. His parachute was never found. The bag that the money was in was never found. Nothing was ever found. And people looked all over this area. But very good questions, Brandon. Very good. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your time. You're welcome. How about one more, Annie, if you have time? How about one more?
Okay, yeah, I have time.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I have a question. So when he got on the plane, he had so-called dynamite, but
Yeah.
like, didn't they check him before he got on the plane? So like, if they saw dynamite, they would take it out and like, no explosives on the plane. That's not allowed.
Linda, you're very smart. And most kids today think that same thing because you have traveled today. You know that when we go to an airport today, like we have to go through security and metal detectors and you have to open your suitcases. We know that. But in 1971, they didn't. They did not have to. They had to go through metal detectors, the thing that hears if like you have something you're not supposed to. But they did not have to like open their suitcases or show anyone or even put their suitcase through. So he was able to get on this plane because there was no metal that set off. So that's the short answer. Is it was a different time in air travel, and it's why we have rules today about taking certain things on a plane. Good question, Linya. You're welcome. You're very, very welcome. It has been my pleasure, y'all. Annie, do you want me to answer somebody else? I can if I need to, if you want me to.
Yeah.
It's fine. I understand. I like it. They're excited about history. That's all good for me.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I can take. Let me look at the time. What time is it right now? Let's stop, and I have to stop in about 3 minutes. Okay.
Teacher?
Yes. Who is this?
It's me. My name's Andy.
Hey, Andy. Nice to meet you.
All right. I just have a quick question. So, back then, there, you know how Boeing had their first 727, and how it looks like a CRJ 700?
The plane doesn't look like it. I understand. So you're saying it looks like it's a different plane. It was a 727. It looks a little different. I mean, the pictures are old, and it might sounds like you know a lot about planes. So what I would tell you is look up the DB Cooper plane, and you can look at all kinds of pictures of it from like. I mean, there are only so many pictures, okay, but you can find pictures of it.
Was Airbus invented yet?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I wasn't even invented yet. I wasn't alive at this time. So it was a long time ago.
Okay.
Good question. Do you like to study aviation?
Yes, I do.
Oh, I can hear it. You're well read about aviation. My son was too, the one that's in the Marine Corps. He loves planes too. So do you know what a V-22 Osprey is?
Probably not.
You'd look it up. It's a really weird helicopter plane. That's what my son works on.
Oh, so it's,
right.
it's like one of those helicopters like that.
That can-
it looks like a plane, but it has helicopter propellers, right?
Yes. I don't mean to take it personal, but yes, y'all, that's and my son started like you. He loved planes and read about them all the time. So keep doing it. Okay. Keep reading. You have a great future ahead of you. You can do whatever you want if you just keep reading about it and learning. Thanks so much for your time, Andy. How about last question? And I'm going to leave it up to Miss Annie. I know there's quite a few of you that are saying, but I'm going to let Annie pick. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. William.
Yeah.
William, it's your turn.
Hey, William.
Hi. So
Hey, it's nice to meet you.
So my question is, if DB Cooper died, then how did the money beside the river was buried?
Good question, William. And lots of people have been concerned by that. I think, and it's just my opinion, but there's lots of information that kind of leads this way. I think he died. I think his money probably was spread out. And remember, this was a story that everybody knew. Okay. It was in the news, it was in the papers, it was on TV. I think someone found his money, but knew that they could not use it. They couldn't spend it, right? And so maybe they found his money blown in another part and they buried it, maybe coming back later, or thought they would, and they never did. That's just my opinion. Because if he buried it and is still alive, that means, like someone said earlier, he was alive and walking around. And that's really strange to believe, that he did all of this and then didn't use the money ever. It's very strange. So it's a very, very, very good question though, William.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody, I'm sorry I can't answer every single question. I really appreciate y'all being here. I need to let you go and let Miss Annie take over. Thanks so much. I hope to see some of you again in another session. Thanks, everybody.